Greetings all. Tonight we're going after the Cocoon Nebula. The Cocoon Nebula is an emission and a reflection nebula in the constellation of Cygnus. It's about 3,200 light years away from Earth, and we're going to be using this rig right here to go after the Cocoon Nebula. The rig I'm using tonight, the Celestron 8SE, this is going to give me a long, narrow field of view so I can get really zoomed in on the Cocoon Nebula. I could even use a bigger scope if I had one, but this is the biggest scope I have right now, so that's what we're going to use. It's riding on top of the iOptron CEM60. It will carry this whole weight real easy, no problem, and have more left over. I use just the standard polar scope that comes with the mount. I found that I don't really need the pole master. When I use this setup here, I've been unable to make it any better at all with the pole master. So this is what I'm using from a polar alignment. Coming on back here to the image train, you see that I have the Celestron 0.63 Phil Flattener focal reducer right here. Then for spacing, I just have the standard Celestron T-mount. Plugged into the back of that, I had to use an adapter, M42 to M48. I have my ZWO off-axis guider. For my guide camera, plugged into the off-axis guider, I've got the Starlight Express X2. That's an excellent camera, works really good for me. I've got a little spacer right in here. And that's just so I can get to the correct back focus between the lens and the sensor on the camera. On the back of my spacer, I've got the 8-position filter wheel, ZWO position. I can get all of my filters in here that I ever need. My broadband, my narrowband, and a light pollution filter all fit in this one wheel, so I never have to take it loose. And then finally, taking a picture of it all, I've got the ZWO ASI 1600mm Pro. It's a monochrome dedicated astronomy camera. Now, because I'm using a monochrome camera, I'm going to be using filters to get my color, the broadband as well as the narrowband. Now, when I was researching this object, trying to decide, am I going to film it in narrowband or broadband? I was assuming it was going to be a narrowband target. But when I started doing some research, I was a little surprised because it seems like most people are filming this object in broadband. I did find a couple of nice pictures that had a HA element plugged in there to beef up the red channel. But I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and cave to peer pressure and shoot this in broadband. I will shoot some HA, and I'll probably do a blended red channel with the HA in red. But I'll tell you what else I'm going to do. I'm also going to shoot some oxygen and sulfur because I want to know why people are not making narrowband images of this thing. I'm going to see if I can make a narrowband image. So actually I'm going to shoot it in both broadband and narrowband, and then the question remains, which is the best way to process this image? So hopefully we'll find that out. I'm Coma. You're watching Coma Astrophotography. Everything is done now. I've got all my programs turned on. I'm just waiting to see Polaris so I can get polar aligned. As soon as I get polar aligned, I'll be able to start shooting. The Cocoon Nebula right now sits right up there. So it's already cleared the roof of my house. Probably be another half an hour before I can start shooting, and by then it'll be on up here, but it'll be out all night for me. I just need to I need for Polaris to come out so I can get started, but it's going to show up right yonder probably here in the next 20 minutes. See Atlas there? He's looking for Polaris too. He's wondering why it's not already out yet. All right, let me show y'all something. I got the Cocoon Nebula called up here. Now, when I was looking at this object, not only do you have the central object here, but it's got a tail, a dark nebula that runs off of it like a tail. It's hard to see that in stellarium, so when I'm trying to frame it up, I want to make sure I get that dark nebula tail in there. Well, if I frame it up like this, kind of down in the corner, you see the happy face here. Here's his eyes, here's his nose, mouth is down here in the chin, and then the tail kind of comes off of that chin and runs out this way. Spam. And hopefully I catch it right. After maybe a couple of images come in, I'll be able to verify that either got it right or I need to change that framing around. That's what we're shooting for. Okay, folks, let me show you something really dumb that I have done. You'll notice, let me call it up here. I took 2 of those 5-minute exposures. Here they are right here. And this is the last one. And I don't see the Cocoon Nebula in here anywhere. When I look for the dark trail, it almost looks like this is the dark trail over here. But that doesn't make any sense, because that means the cocoon would have to be down here. And this is the dark trail going off. And if you look at it here, it's definitely in the field of view, and we think the dark trail running off up this way. But let me show you what I have done that's really, really stupid. If you look up here, you'll see that I have the Z103 called up. So this is showing me the field of view for the Z103 with the flat 6.3. That's not what I'm using. I'm using the Celestron 8SE. So let's go and put that one in here. There it is, and let's get the right reducer in there. There it is. So this is how we're really framed up once I put the correct information in here. And you'll see that the Cocoon Nebula is indeed out of the frame, and the dark trail runs off like this. That's exactly what we're seeing. So this it is what it is. So because of that mistake I made on the framing, I'm going to have to recenter this object and reframe it up. Fortunately, that's no big deal. So I'm just going to go back to Astrophotography tool. We'll reframe it with the right information in here, and then we'll get going again. But that's why we check things, to catch those kind of silly mistakes. I'm just going to call it back up, and I'm going to center it. So this will put it right in the center, and then we'll adjust it from there. That's what I should have done in the first place. But I don't always do the right thing.
Exposure started. Exposure finished. Go to ++ finished.
Okay, now we're back in the center. So this time I want to move it up. So we said that's this way. So let me aim right here and see what happens. This ought to be right now. This one should get it.
Exposure started. Exposure finished. Go to ++ finished.
Nope, exactly the wrong way. Okay.
Exposure started.
Can you imagine
Exposure
the nightmare
finished.
this would be if you didn't have plate solving?
Go to ++ finished.
All right, now we're getting really close. That might be where I want to be. I think I'll move just a little bit further. Just a little bit further out. Not too much though. Let's go for that right there. And I think this is going to be it.
Exposure started. Exposure finished. Go to ++ finished.
All right, that's where we want to be. So let's see what this gives us. We'll restart guiding. Make sure it's not going to do anything weird. Looks okay. Now we'll restart our imaging plan. I think this time I am going to start with some HA, see what we get, and then we'll move into the LRGB. So I'm going to start with some 10-minute HA.
Filter change. Exposure started.
So I'll be back with you when we get the first HA frame. We'll take a look at it, and if it's good, then we'll just let it run. Okay, back with you. Got some of our HA exposures in. Here's the last one that came in. See the Cocoon Nebula up here? I believe this is the dark nebula trail coming down like this. So framed up just like we want it. This is about what I was expecting out of the 10-minute HA exposures. I'm okay with that. Right here we have a luminance exposure.
Exposure finished.
Let's see what this one looks like.
Dithering started.
Okay. This was a 5-minute luminance. You can see right up here, you can actually see some of the cocoon. You can see the trail running down through this.
Dithering finished.
So that's okay. That's not
Exposure started.
That's not too washed out. It's not washed out at all, in fact. So I'm okay with that. So I'm going to let this run. If we go back to the plan, we finished some HA. We got the luminance red, green, and blue. And I think I'm going to kill out this HA and go straight to the O3, but I'll do that later. Got a meridian flip coming up here in, you can see it, 2 minutes. So this one might finish and it might not. But regardless, I'll on the other side of the meridian, I'll restart the plan back on luminance, and that'll give me a chance to modify it and take this HA out since we already got our HA. So I'll be back with you after the meridian flip. Red's much better. In fact, red is pretty doggone close to what we saw with hydrogen. You can see the cocoon here, the dark nebula trail going up through the stars there. Take a peek at one of the green exposures. And not a lot there. See it a little bit maybe. Let's take a look at a blue. Here's a blue. Kind of close to what the red was, maybe, but I think a little better than the green and blue. Anyhow, I told you I was curious to see the O3 and the S2 signal, so let's go down to the end and take a peek at some O3 and some S2. Let's see, here's an O3 frame right here. I don't see anything there. Maybe if I look hard enough, I might see the cocoon right here, maybe. So I'm not sure that these O3 frames are going to do anything for us. I'm going to stack them though and see if I get anything out of it. Take a peek at the one of the S2 frames though. You can definitely see the cocoon here. You can also see the dark nebula trail. So there is some sulfur signal. And when I stack this, I know I'm going to get something. So oxygen, maybe, maybe not. I'll stack it and see what I get. Sulfur, there's definitely something there. So I'll figure out how I want to process these. So I got luminance, red, green, blue, and I also got HA, O3, and S2. So I'll figure out how I want to do this and let you know at the end. I'm going to do this a little differently than I normally would. Normally here I would show the pictures with some music and all that, but if you remember during the video, I talked about several different ways to process this, to stack this, whether to do broadband or narrowband. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through some different options that I have on the computer and show you some of the different outcomes, and then let you decide which ones you like best. So we'll get right into it. Here we have an image where I've taken the hydrogen image and the red image and combined them to get a combined hydrogen alpha red. I'll use this for a luminance layer, probably on the broadband as well as narrowband, and I'll also use this image to replace the red channel with a hybrid HA red in all the broadband images. Having done that, you see these are some of the options that I came up with. Just take a quick stroll through these. In the top left, I use kind of a traditional narrowband processing, hydrogen, sulfur, oxygen mapping, color mapping, and then I use the HA layer as a luminance layer. So this one is strictly narrowband. So that turned out pretty good. The next one in the top right, I use the Hubble palette. This one also is narrowband. Sulfur, hydrogen, oxygen, but in this one, instead of using the HA as a luminance layer, I used the blended HA red layer that I showed you earlier as a luminance layer for the Hubble palette. Down on the bottom left, I took this one is broadband. I took the RGB broadband image and I replaced the red channel with the blended HA red image. I then went and used the same HA red image as a luminance layer, so kind of doubled down with the HA in red. And then finally in the bottom right down here, this one is also strictly narrowband. On this one I mapped hydrogen to the red, oxygen to the green, and sulfur to the blue, so kind of non-traditional there. And then I used the hydrogen as a luminance layer. So these are some options I've come up with. Decide which one you like. But I think earlier in the video we raised the question of, should we shoot this object in narrowband or should we shoot it in broadband? And I think we've answered the question, which is yes. Shoot it in broadband or shoot it in narrowband. Either one. You can be successful either way. Or do what I've done and make a blended combination of broadband and narrowband. Anyhow, the only question that remains is, which one of these options are we going to use as our final image choice?